I don't know where we are at this point. My stream keeps dropping and that's no fun. But where we are in this whole process is that let me get my little interact out here. So right now the DO for the hot liquor tank is at 50 parts per billion, which is really low. And we're waiting for the mash tun to get to the appropriate levels. So we're just waiting on that. So yeah, that's what we're waiting on. Waiting on this to get lower. You can see we just did one purge cycle, which would have been a pressure up and a blow down. So now we're going to pressure back up via the nitrogen in the bottom. The headspace pressure is rising, and the DO should start falling. Once it gets to about 1 psi on the top, then it starts its blowdown cycle. Like I said, the blowdown cycle is from here, through here, through here, through here, through here, through here. And so we're just maximizing the use of that purge, that oxygen stripping gas nitrogen here. So you can see that the DO is falling very rapidly here, here, and here in the mash tun and the boil kettle. We're at right around 10 to 20 ppb in the hot liquor tank. So we're super low there. That looks great. Now we're going through another purge cycle of a pressure up. You'll see this valve right here go on, pressure go up, DO go lower, headspace go lower, pressure up, blow down. So we do these purge cycles, and then it just counts how many purge cycles. Usually 10. So if I wasn't using any antioxidants, it usually takes me about 10 to 12 purge cycles to get this really, really low, you know, somewhere in this range, which is fine. We don't have to be that critical because we are using antioxidants. The system is telling me right now to add my SBT and to press continue because it's going to go start heating to strike. So that's what I'm going to go do right now. I'm going to go add that SBT and hit the continue button. This will heat up to the actual strike temperature, which is roughly 140 something, and this will just continue to do its purge cycles and get the DO lower. So like I said, DO in the bottom of the ton right now is at about 200 parts per million, and we're at 10 to 20 parts per billion here in the mash tun. So we should be good. I'm gonna go start getting that ready and we'll go from there. I'll be back. So what we're doing right now is we are waiting for the mash tun DO to get a little lower, and the SBT was added, and so I'll go see where we are on that. But right now we're just in a little holding pattern. So yeah, so I just verified the script quick, and we are heating to strike, which you can see both elements are on right here. We're heating to our strike. Here's our amps that we're pulling. There's dual 45 or 5500 watt elements in that hot liquor tank, so it can heat strike pretty fast. And we are just waiting till that gets to strike, and we are waiting till these DO levels fall as well. Again, we're still going through our purge cycles, and that's that. I do have a pH probe in the hot liquor tank. So there's the pH of the strike water. Again, it's at 10 particles per billion, 10 ppb, not ppm, ppb, super low. So you can see how fast the yeast deoxygenation worked and how effective it is. It's super effective. For today's dose, I used the 1 gram per gallon method. The original method was right around 2 grams per gallon, but I've been doing some extensive work with that, and I found that 1 gram per gallon, if you raise the hot liquor tank temperature a little bit, that you will see a tremendous reduction in DO really fast, about the same as the 2 grams per gallon if it's at room temperature. So if you have the ability to add a little, like get the kettle to 80-90 degrees for a little bit, it really helps those yeast take off. So I'm using, like I said, 1 gram per gallon. It's super easy to do instead of the pre-boil. The pre-boil, obviously you have to expend energy to heat, and then you have to cool it back down and have to worry about introducing any more oxygen as you're cooling it down, because as that liquid is cooling, it's trying to suck in, and so you're fighting a battle of that if you don't have a sealed system. So this yeast deoxygenation is just simply adding a little bit of bread yeast and sugar to your strike water, and that's it. You just wait. If you want, you can bump up temperature a little bit, 80-90 degrees, and that'll accelerate the process. As you can see, we're just about 30 minutes in to the brew session today. Here's our session timer. So we're just about 30 minutes into the brew session. Our DO is extremely low, and we're just heating to strike temperature. So really it doesn't add much more, maybe 20-30 minutes to your brew day to do the yeast deoxygenation. And a lot of people, what they're doing is they'll prep their water overnight. So what I found with my testing and data is that this yeast deoxygenation will not only work in the short term, it'll go out days and keeping that DO super low. So you could easily do this the night before, and it would literally add no extra time to your actual brew day. A lot of people prep for the brew the night before, get water ready or whatever they're doing. You would just simply add your yeast and your sugar mixture at that time. And by the time you come back the next morning or whenever, the later that night or whatever your brew day is, you'll have super low DO water and it'll be ready to go. So that is definitely a valid method. So like I said, we're just waiting to strike, and we got both elements on. We got recirculation, and we only got about 20 degrees to go, so it should be fairly quick, a couple minutes at most. Other than that, I'm trying to think of anything else I should explain. In the mash tun, you can see DO is falling. We're at 200 and some ppm or ppb, sorry, around 280 ppb or 0.28 ppm. In the bottom, in the head space, we're here, and in the boil kettle, we're almost just as well purged as well. And so that is using that recycled purge gas from here, and we're doing basically this. I find it much more efficient, and I use much less gas that way instead of purging the vessels independently of their own, you know, going like this and going like this. So half the amount of gas and just as efficient. Purge cycle 10. I track my purge cycles just so I know how efficient it is. So the one cycle is a pressure up and a full blow down. So another thing to note is I do have a conductivity meter in the hot liquor tank, and we are using RO today with a slight blend of tap. If you look here, there's a RO proportional valve and a tap proportional valve. That tap is unfiltered, unsoftened tap water, and today's blend was very slight. It was about 1 gallon of tap into 19 gallons of RO, and this measures conductivity. So this tells me the hardness, or I'm sorry, this tells me the TDS of the water in the hot liquor tank. So you can see with my blend today and the water salts, I'm at about 45.3 ppm of TDS hardness. So what are we at? We're at about 130 degrees right now on the hot liquor tank. Other than that, pretty static. The the mash tun for our session today has hit its terminal of how low I feel I need to go with the active antioxidants and all that kind of stuff. And so it stopped. It stopped on purge count 11, like I said, between 10 and 12. And so this is you know, sub 0.5 ppm or sub 500 ppb, and the headspace is looking good. It's at 200 ppb. The boil kettle is at 600 ppb. So I mean, it's looking pretty good. What's going to happen is there's still a blanket on the bottom, and as we start to underlet, we're going to push that blanket. You know, we have our deoxygenated water. The DO is going to be super low down here. It's going to be the lowest there is because it's coming in the bottom. So the purge actually comes in through the piping, through the pump, and the pump is a center bottom drain. So it's coming in the center bottom. This guy right here is literally about that spot in the kettle. So your DO is going to be super low. It uses the same underletting line, so I'm getting complicated here, but so you know, we're going to underlet right into the bottom, right behind here. And so our DO is going to be super low here, and basically what's going to happen is this deoxygenated water is going to push this blanket up, 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 and then and so it'll continue to be super low. And we'll see that here too when we start underletting. So that's how that works. So we'll just wait. We're almost there. 138. We'll be at, well, strike was, it's usually about 10 degrees, so it'll be about 145 is what we'll strike at generally, really close to that. If the mash tun gets out of whack, if the mash tun gets too much DO to creep back in, this purge cycle will continue again. It'll just basically hold this DO and continue to go. So that's just in a holding pattern right now because the levels are fine. And like I said, we're just waiting for a strike. Once that happens, you'll see that it'll change, and then we'll just go from there. Hey Benson, is it back now? Are you still here? Kids be going cray. All right, so like that, we hit our strike. Strike temp was hit. Right here is our strike. And so, okay, good. Yeah, I don't know if my internet was having issues or what was going on. It was kicking me off, and too many people trying to use the internet in the world today. So right now we are underletting. So we're going like this, right to the mash tun. Our volume that we need to hit is right here. That's how much our strike is for the day. And this window is being bothersome. Right here is our flow meter, so that's how much we've actually flowed. We're going to try and maintain about a gallon a minute or thereabouts. Proportional valve right here, so that's going to on the fly accommodate for that. So we should just be able to watch that. It's going to take a minute, you know, at a gallon a minute. We're looking at 8 minutes to underlet, and we should be good. You do have multiple probes in the hot liquor tank, so the probe I'm watching right now is right here. So it says mash tun out, but really it's right on the bottom here, right next to this pump. So I call it mash tun out, but the underlet comes right through and is right there. So I'm just watching that. The hot liquor tank has fallen a little bit at 145, which is right where it should be. So we should be really close to our underlet or our strike temp. So that looks good. The other temperature probe right here for the mash tun, it says mash return, and that probe is literally right here, and that's going to monitor the mash when it starts recirculating. And once we start recirculating, then I will definitely explain my thought process between how I run the mash and what I do that I feel works really well. The other thing to keep in mind is here's our mash pH. That actual probe is right around here in the actual system, and so it is now starting to get covered up with the strike water, and so we shall see what we land at. Like I said, we're shooting for 5.4, and so most likely we will have to add some acid, and that is going to be in the form of sour goot. And I have an auto dosing here, and the whole sour goot control is right here. So the system is kind of trying to auto guess what the dosage should be based on the pH. So it's kind of guessing at 150 milliliter dose, but that's not, it'll be more than that. It doesn't really matter. It's going to auto dose to maintain the proper pH anyways. And this pH is going to rise because as we dough in, we're just getting this water. You know, this water pH is going across the probe, and whatever grain is, you know, mingling right there, and whatever's, nothing's really happening. It's pretty static. So this won't start changing until we start recirculating and stirring and stuff like that. Right now we're at about 5 gallons. So we got about 3 gallons left at this point for the underlet. My streaming screen is really small, so I can't see what the actual valve is at. It looks like maybe 30. I'm not sure. I can't make it any bigger, so I can't see. But it'll kind of try and maintain that about a gallon a minute. I think I see right around a gallon a minute or so on the flow. So that looks to be fine. Everything else seems to be progressing fine. I'm going to turn on my sight glass camera, which will be, I have a specific camera dedicated to the sight glass, so that's going to come in right around there. So let me turn that on. There's that. I'm gonna play around with that to get a little bit better picture. That should be fine for what we're doing today. I don't know, whatever. There's no good place to put my little box. If I minus it, then I can't see that. If I minus the streaming screen, then I can't see the chat. All right, so we have underleaded. This takes into account any tubing losses, and so we are going to, I just want to take a look at that. All right, stirring looked good. Let me clear this. All right, so now what we're going into, we're adding some sauergut. We're purging the headspace as well. And we are going to be starting our recirculation. So you'll be able to see we're starting to get some gravity here, some flow rate. The mash compaction is looking good. The sauergut addition is right here. All right, so it added its 150 mils, and now we're going to do some recirculation and figure out where we need to be. We're at 5.5, 5.51, 5.52 right now, but we're going to turn that volume, we're going to turn that liquid before we add any more sauergut, just to make sure we don't undershoot. All right, so let's see here. So right now we're in our mash recirculation mode. You can see that there is warp through the sight glass now. pH has gone a little lower. It's going to bound back up, so I'm sure we'll be fine. So what's going on right now? Well, right now we are coming out of the mash tun here. We're going through the mass flow, and we're coming up behind here. And right here we have two different options. This through the Herms coil, which is in the hot liquor tank, and through. That's what I'll call my heat loop. And then we also have Now I should have drew that in red. Then we also have this loop. And that's what I call my cool loop or my at temperature loop. So how this works is the system is monitoring this temperature, which is 133, and this temperature, which is 139. Then it's doing a temperature average right here. So the average between these two temperatures is 136 degrees, which our dough in was 135, right? So so right now we're ramping from our strike right here to our first mash rest. And because we're ramping, it's going to be going through the herms now. So let me draw this in red because that's just how my brain works. So since we are heating, we are going through the herms where the hot liquor tank is, obviously, and through. So the temperature of the hot liquor tank right now is 150 degrees, and it will grow. It's controlled right here off this mash control, right here. And so we're heating right now at a full 5,500 watts, and we're trying to get to our next step, which is 145 degrees, which is actually 144 degrees, because I do a little bit different there too. So 145 is actually 144 once you pull in the averaging. No big deal. It's just a degree anyways. And so like I said, so as we're heating that up, we are, as we're going through the hot liquor tank and the herms, we're heating it up. We're not to our rest yet, so that's why it's going through the heat loop. I have the system set up as such that most of the time it will go through the heat loop, and basically the cooling or at temperature loop is only for if for some reason we exceed our output temperature here of over a degree. So I'm not sure if that is clear and makes sense, but really this loop is for dough in. It does a recirculation amongst itself for dough in, and then and if this were to get above plus 1 F, then it's gonna kick this valve and say, nope, send it that way, because I don't want to be overshooting. I don't want to be overshooting my mash temperatures greater than 1 degree, and that's the level of control that I use. And so it just seems to work for me in that regard. So like I said, we're mashing, we're shooting for 145 degrees. We're at 143. So we're almost to our first rest. Once our first rest starts, you'll see our timer start to count down here. Our total timer for the day is right around 56 minutes, so we're about an hour in, and we are mashing. Gravity right now, we really haven't started beta range yet, but gravity right now is about 1040. We We are seeing a little mash compaction, so I'll take a look at that. We are doing a headspace purge as well right now. So we're almost at our mash rest here. Really close. All right, so you can see that this valve is starting to cycle now and bypass the Herms because it's trying to maintain that 144-ish temperature. And so, once it dials in, then it'll cycle a little bit less. But that's it. Auto calculating those 2 loops. pH is going to slowly start to creep up as we get through mashing, and should land right where we want it to be. I'm gonna step away for a little bit, get a drink of water, and I'll be back.